You will not rise above the level of your discipline. You can have clear goals and strong ambition, but without consistent self-leadership, you'll fall short. Every time. Discipline is the foundation. It's not flashy, but it's what separates those who talk from those who execute. Most people treat discipline like an accessory when it should be central. They chase motivation when what they need is structure. They wait to feel inspired instead of stopping the cycle of negotiating with their excuses. Discipline bridges the gap between what you want and what you do. It outlasts mood, fuels consistency, builds self-respect, and shapes character. When you follow through, you start trusting yourself. That's where real confidence comes from. Not hype, but alignment. It's not about punishment or being robotic. It's about creating habits that match your future, not your past. Discipline removes chaos, simplifies decisions, and builds rhythm that leads to momentum. Most people don't lack potential. They lack follow-through. They start fast and fade out. Not because they don't care, but because they never trained discipline. They haven't structured their lives to support it. You can't reach new levels with the same old behaviors. Real change takes more than effort. It takes daily, deliberate discipline. Discipline is the skill that sharpens every other one. It fuels consistency in learning, cuts through friction and progress, and sustains performance even when motivation vanishes. It's rarely exciting in the moment, but over time it brings results that hype never will. And the more you train it, the more automatic it becomes, until excellence is just who you are. There are 7 key techniques that build that kind of discipline. Not fluff, not theory, but tested methods to create consistency under pressure, to replace feelings with focus, and to make discipline feel like identity, not struggle. This isn't for people who want comfort. It's for those ready to stop starting over, ready to align action with ambition, ready to become the version of themselves they keep talking about. Because when discipline becomes your identity, everything changes. Not because you tried harder, but because you became aligned. The first technique to sharpen your self-discipline is simple: eliminate negotiation. That internal voice that asks, do I really have to do this today? That voice has to go. Because every time you start negotiating with your discipline, you give your feelings the final say. And feelings are inconsistent. They shift based on sleep, stress, opinions, moods. If your actions depend on your mood, your results will be unstable. Discipline starts where negotiation ends. It's not up for debate. It's not based on how you feel. It's already decided. You show up because it's scheduled. You execute because it's part of the process. You don't wait for inspiration, you follow your standard. That's the power of pre-decision. If you wait to decide in the moment, you're deciding tired, distracted, emotional. That's when negotiation wins. So set your rules in advance. Lock in your routines. Be specific. Time, day, action. Put it on the calendar and it's done. The more friction you remove from starting, the less room there is to talk yourself out of it. That's how discipline becomes automatic. Not through willpower, but through systems. The best don't rely on how they feel. They rely on their schedule. Each time you override the negotiation, your identity strengthens. You show yourself who's in control. You act from alignment, not impulse. Eventually, that internal debate fades. You're no longer deciding. You're doing. And with each repetition, discipline becomes your baseline. You don't ask, do I feel like it? You ask, what did I say I'd do? That shift creates momentum. It's not about pushing harder forever. It's about training your inner voice to support your standard, from maybe later to this is who I am, or from indecision to identity. That's where real discipline begins. The second technique to build discipline is mastering micro-commitments. Most people aim too big, too vague. I'll start working out, I'll be more focused. Statements like that don't work because they have no time, no trigger, no finish line. But when you say, I'll write for 20 minutes after coffee or 50 push-ups before the shower, that's a micro-commitment. clear, small, and actionable. Discipline isn't about huge declarations. It's built in small wins stacked daily. Micro commitments create a rhythm. Each time you follow through, you're not just checking a box. You're reinforcing your identity. You're building self-respect. And self-respect builds confidence, not as a feeling, but as a pattern of follow through. When things feel overwhelming, most people try to fix everything at once. They sprint through change and burnout. But discipline is built through simplicity. By winning the small battles consistently. When you become the person who finishes what they start, it's not hype. It's habit. Micro commitments give you data. They let you track what works. When your momentum fades, you can return to what grounded you. What were the small moves that had you locked in? Bring them back. It's not about overhauling everything. It's about returning to what builds trust in yourself. Start your day with one non-negotiable. One task, one trigger, one timeline. Then act on it. The most disciplined people aren't superhuman. They're just consistent with their small wins. They anchor their day in clarity, structure, and simplicity. That's how discipline becomes sustainable. That's how mastery is built. The third technique to build self-discipline is mastering the art of recovery. Discipline isn't just about pushing harder. It's about managing energy. Without recovery, your willpower fades, focus slips, and decisions suffer. Not because you're lazy, but because you're depleted. Most people burn out not from lack of effort, but from lack of restoration. Recovery isn't passive. It's strategic. High performers don't wait to rest when they collapse. They recover so they don't collapse. They don't see rest as a reward. They see it as fuel. Recovery sharpens output, strengthens clarity, and helps you lead from overflow, not survival. The disciplined build rhythms, not just routines. They know when to push, and they know when to pause. They create space for stillness and protect their energy with boundaries. They schedule recovery like they schedule effort. Movement, stillness, nutrition, silence, reflection. It's all part of the system. The more pressure you carry, the more recovery you need. Not because you're weak, but because you're building something strong. Recovery isn't just physical, it's emotional. It means processing thoughts and pressure so they don't leak into your performance. It's about realignment, not retreat. Recovery protects you from burnout. It turns ambition into sustainability. It keeps discipline from breaking under fatigue. You don't grow by pushing endlessly. You grow by managing energy wisely. The people who sustain their drive treat energy like currency. They spend with intention, they recharge with consistency, and they never confuse exhaustion with excellence. This is how you keep winning. Not once, but repeatedly. Not from grinding nonstop, but from learning when to rest with purpose. Not when it's convenient, but because it's essential. The fourth technique to build self-discipline is to raise the cost of inconsistency. Most people stay inconsistent because the consequences don't hit hard in the moment. Skip a workout. No big deal. Snooze the alarm. Try again tomorrow. But just because it doesn't explode immediately doesn't mean it's free. Every time you break your word to yourself, you lose trust. You tell your subconscious your standards are optional. And over time, that quiet erosion shapes your identity. Discipline is rooted in identity. If your story is I follow through, you move different. If your story becomes I always bail, your actions will follow. To rewrite that story, inconsistency has to feel expensive. You need internal pressure that makes skipping the habit feel worse than doing it. Not from shame, but from accountability. Do it in two ways. First, consequences. Real ones. Miss your workout. Pay money to a cause you don't support. Skip your writing session. Tell someone you respect. Fail to plan your day. Sacrifice comfort. Make it hurt enough that breaking your standard becomes memorable. Because what gets measured gets managed. And if inconsistency is invisible, it stays alive. Second, reflection. When you miss, don't ignore it. Document it. What triggered it? What excuse won? What pattern needs correcting? Discipline grows when you make failure visible. This builds pattern awareness and conditions new behavior. You stop trying and start reinforcing a new baseline. Even on your worst day, you hit the floor, your minimum. Because discipline isn't perfection. It's non-negotiable consistency. Consistency doesn't need to be dramatic. It just needs to be real. Show up, hit the floor, keep the muscle alive. When you raise the cost of inconsistency, discipline becomes automatic. You've trained your system to reject drift, to catch the slide early, to make discipline the default. That's not just discipline, that's identity. That's leadership. The fifth technique to enhance your self-discipline is to anchor your habits to identity. Behavior powered by willpower fades. Behavior powered by identity sticks. When your actions come from who you believe you are, not just what you're trying to do, discipline becomes automatic, not exhausting. Most people try to change habits without changing how they see themselves. They say, I want to be consistent, but still identify as someone who struggles with follow-through. They plan to get in shape, but carry the mindset of someone who only moves when motivated. That's why change doesn't last, because their habits outpace their identity. An effort without alignment burns you out. But when you shift how you see yourself, this is who I am now. The behavior that once felt forced starts to feel natural. You stop saying, I need to work out, and start saying, I'm someone who doesn't skip workouts. You act from your future self. You embody the identity before you fully believe it. Then back it with small, consistent actions. Every choice made in alignment with that identity reinforces it. Identity isn't fixed, it's built, trained, shaped through repeated behavior. Start with one habit. Ask, who's the version of me that lives this every day? Then act like that person. Create an environment that supports it. Stock the fridge like someone who eats clean. Schedule your time like someone who protects their focus. Set standards that are non-negotiable. That way, discipline isn't a question anymore. It's a default. This person doesn't ask, should I do it today? They already decided. They don't need motivation. They've designed conditions to support action. They don't act for attention. They act in alignment. Whether someone's watching or not, they move the same. Because their behavior is now a reflection of their identity, not their feelings. To become that person, stop making decisions based on who you've been. Start making them based on who you're becoming. That shift, internal, intentional, repeated, is what turns discipline into your operating system. And when identity leads, results follow. The sixth technique to enhance your self-discipline is to develop pattern recognition. You can't out-discipline a pattern you don't understand. If you don't know what breaks your focus, drains your energy, or triggers procrastination, you'll keep forcing willpower while repeating the same cycles. Discipline that lasts isn't just about effort. It's about awareness. Every excuse, every skipped commitment, every I'll do it later follows a script you've repeated for years. Most people don't lack drive. They lack insight. They work harder without noticing the friction points. They raise goals without addressing internal resistance. And then burn out, confused about why nothing sticks. And pattern recognition changes that. It brings clarity to your behavior. You start asking sharper questions. When do I drift? What triggers procrastination? What routines fuel me? What thoughts show up before I give in? Those aren't random. They're maps. And once you understand the map, you can redesign the route. You stop reacting and start anticipating. That's not brute discipline. It's strategic discipline. This is why reflection matters. Not because it's trendy, but because it exposes loops. Drift doesn't begin with missed workouts. It begins with skip planning. It doesn't start with broken promises. It starts with mental negotiation the day before. Discipline isn't just about the act. It's about catching the drift early and correcting fast. The most consistent people aren't stronger. They're more aware. They course correct quickly. You can train this. Daily check-ins, weekly audits, honest questions. What triggered the slip? What was I avoiding? What needs adjusting? The more you reflect, the earlier you see the signs. You pre-decide your response. You stop fighting the same battles by predicting the enemy, your own patterns. That's how you move from reacting to leading, from drifting to dominating. That's real discipline. Not loud, but lasting. The seventh technique to enhance your self-discipline is to shorten the gap between intention and action. The longer you wait, the louder resistance gets. Every second of hesitation feeds doubt, which turns into avoidance, then regret. Discipline thrives on speed. Doing the hard thing quickly without overthinking, without ceremony. Most people stall, waiting to feel ready or to have every detail in place. But the disciplined move immediately. The alarm rings, they get up. A task appears. They start, no delay, no debate, just motion. This speed is a muscle. Start by observing your delay time. Notice the excuses, the friction, then shorten it by minutes, then seconds, until action becomes instinct. Call it a 5-second rule, a 2-second decision. It doesn't matter. What matters is momentum. If you don't act fast, your brain starts offering exits. Winners don't hesitate. They move before doubt takes root. It's not recklessness, it's rhythm. The moment you know what to do, you start. Even if it's small, even if it's messy, start. That shift in tempo rewires everything. You build self-trust. You build momentum. You stop feeding hesitation and start feeding motion. And with motion comes belief. With belief comes identity. Suddenly, discipline isn't complicated. It's who you are. You're not stuck in your head, you're in movement. Most people feel stuck because they've trained themselves to overthink. They believe they need more clarity, more motivation. But what they really need is movement. The faster you start, the faster you grow. The gap shrinks. The results come. Discipline wins. You now hold 7 techniques, 7 tools, 7 strategies that don't hype you up. They build you. They work not because they're flashy, but because they're rooted in behavior, truth, and repetition. These aren't tips. They're foundations. You don't memorize them, you live them. And in living them, you stop being someone who talks about discipline and start being someone who leads with it. You learn discipline starts when negotiation stops. Every time you debate your standard, you delay your future. But when you decide in advance, you remove the drama. The path becomes clear. You don't think. You move. You learn the power of micro-commitments. Small wins stacked daily are more powerful than occasional bursts of effort. You don't need hype. You need proof. You need to keep promises to yourself. And that pattern builds identity. You learn recovery is not weakness. It's fuel. The disciplined don't burn out because they protect their rhythm. They recover on purpose so they can lead with energy, not exhaustion. You learned inconsistency can't be free. It has to cost you. Because if missing your standard doesn't feel like failure, it'll keep happening. And when your word to yourself starts meaning something, your discipline becomes real. You learn to anchor your actions to identity. Not I'll try. But this is who I am. You don't act disciplined. You become disciplined. And when your behavior and identity match, discipline isn't hard. It's who you are. You learn to study your patterns. You're not blaming life anymore. You're observing it. You're adjusting your behavior in real time. And that awareness is power. It makes you sharp. It keeps you from slipping back. You learn to move without waiting. The gap between intention and action is where momentum dies. So you shut that gap. You don't wait. You move. And now that response is becoming a reflex. Discipline isn't something you find. It's something you build. You've been building it. Daily, quietly, with intention. And now you're not chasing potential. You're living it, not perfectly, but consistently. And consistency compounds. This isn't a finish line. This is your framework, your reset point. The system you return to when life punches back. You won't get it perfect every time. But now you know what to do. You've got the structure, you've got the tools, and you've got the truth. Now lead yourself. Stick to the standard. Keep the promise. And each time you do, discipline gets more automatic. Not because life gets easier, but because you've stopped making the work optional.